My boyfriend proposed to me in front of everyone, so I broke up with him on the spot. Kyle and I had been dating for 2 years. For the first year, things were great, but somewhere around month 15, he started getting weird about money. He'd check my bank account on my phone when I was in the shower. He'd ask how much I spent on groceries. Once, I bought a $20 shirt, and he gave me this look like I'd just burned cash in front of him. But the worst part was how he treated waiters. Every single time we went out to eat, he'd find something wrong. The water had too much ice. The bread was too cold. The napkins were the wrong color. Then he'd leave a $1 tip on a $60 bill. I started bringing cash to leave extra tips when he wasn't looking. 3 weeks ago, he told me we were going to Antonio's, this fancy Italian place downtown. He said his parents were coming and my mom was invited too. I thought it was just a family dinner. I wore this blue dress I'd been saving and showed up at 6. The restaurant was packed. His parents were already sitting at a big table near the center of the room. My mom arrived 5 minutes after me. Kyle was wearing a suit, which should have been my first red flag because he only wore suits to job interviews. Dinner started normal. We ordered appetizers. Kyle made a comment about the bread being stale, but the waiter just smiled and walked away. Then our main courses came. Kyle ordered the most expensive steak on the menu. I got pasta because it was cheaper. Halfway through dinner, Kyle stood up. He cleared his throat really loud. The entire restaurant went quiet. People at other tables turned to look. That's when I knew something bad was about to happen. He pulled out a small box from his jacket pocket. My stomach dropped. He got down on one knee right there next to the table. Everyone started pulling out their phones. I heard someone say, "Oh my God, how romantic." Kyle opened the box. Inside was a ring. Not a nice ring. It looked like something from a vending machine. The stone was so small I could barely see it. But that wasn't even the bad part. He started talking. He said, "I know we've had our ups and downs, but I think it's time we take the next step." Then he said, "And don't worry, this ring only cost me $40, so you can't complain about me spending too much." The entire restaurant heard it. $40. He said it like he was proud, like he was doing me a favor by spending so little. My mom's face went red. His mom looked down at her plate, but Kyle was smiling like he'd just won the lottery. Then he said, "So what do you say? Will you marry me?" I looked at the ring. I looked at him. I looked at all the people watching with their phones out, recording everything. I stood up. I said no. He blinked like he didn't understand. "What?" I said, "I'm not marrying you. I'm breaking up with you. Right now." His face went white. People started whispering. Someone's phone was still recording. I could see the little red dot. Kyle tried to grab my hand, but I pulled away. He said, "You're joking, right? This is a joke?" I said, "The only joke here is that ring, and the fact that you thought I'd say yes after watching you treat people like garbage for months." His dad started to stand up, but his mom pulled him back down. My mom was already grabbing her purse. I turned to walk out, and Kyle yelled, "Wait." Everyone in the restaurant was staring. The waiter came over with the check and handed it directly to Kyle. Kyle pulled out a credit card and gave it to the waiter. But the waiter looked at the card, then looked at me with this weird expression. He said, "Ma'am, this card has your name on it. I didn't own a credit card." Kyle had always said I didn't need one. The waiter showed me, and sure enough, there was my name with an account I'd never opened. Kyle tried to say it was a surprise, but the waiter said, "This card's been used here 12 times in the past month, always when you came in with different women." The restaurant went completely silent. Even the kitchen sounds stopped. I took the card from the waiter's hand and looked at it. Capital One Platinum. My full name embossed on the front. Except I'd never applied for this card. I'd never even seen it before. Kyle's face went from white to red in about 2 seconds. He stood up so fast his chair fell backwards. "That's not what it sounds like," he said. His voice cracked on the last word. The waiter was a younger guy, maybe mid-20s, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. He looked uncomfortable, but he didn't back down. He said, "I've been working here for 3 years. I remember faces. You've been here with at least 4 different women in the last month, always ordering expensive wine, always using that card." Kyle's mom made a sound like she'd been punched. His dad just sat there with his hands flat on the table, staring at the bread basket. My mom grabbed my arm and said, "We're leaving." But I couldn't move. I needed to hear this. I looked at Kyle. "Explain," I said. "Right now. Explain how my name is on a card I never applied for. Explain the other women." He opened his mouth, but nothing came out at first. Then he said, "It's a misunderstanding. I can explain everything. The card is for us. For our future. I was building your credit." The waiter shook his head. "Sir, you told me 2 weeks ago that your girlfriend worked in marketing and traveled for work. The woman you were with had red hair and ordered the lobster ravioli." He looked at me. "You don't have red hair." I felt my hands start shaking. "How much is on this card?" I asked the waiter. He glanced at Kyle, then back at me. "I don't know the exact amount, ma'am, but I can tell you the bill from your visit 2 weeks ago was $418, and you weren't here that night." Kyle lunged forward and grabbed the card out of my hand. "You don't know what you're talking about," he said to the waiter. "You're remembering wrong. I come here with her all the time." But the waiter didn't flinch. He pulled out his phone and tapped the screen a few times. He turned it around so everyone at the table could see. It was a photo from the restaurant's Instagram page. Kyle sitting at a booth with a woman who definitely wasn't me. She had short blonde hair and was laughing at something. The date stamp said 18 days ago. The caption read, "Date night goals." Kyle's mom stood up. She said, "Raymond," and that was Kyle's dad's name. We're leaving." She grabbed her purse and walked toward the exit without looking at anyone. Kyle's dad followed her like he was on autopilot. He didn't say a word. Kyle turned to me. His eyes were wet, but I couldn't tell if it was real crying or panic. "Babe, please," he said. "Let me explain. This is all a big misunderstanding." I said, "Don't call me babe." Then I turned to the waiter. "I need to know everything. How many times has he been here? Who he was with? All of it." The waiter looked at his manager, who was now standing near the bar watching the whole thing. The manager nodded. The waiter said, "Give me your number and I'll send you copies of the receipts. We keep records of all credit card transactions." Kyle tried to grab my arm, but my mom stepped between us. She was 5'3" and worked as a dental hygienist, but in that moment she looked like she could break him in half. She said, "If you touch my daughter, I will make sure you regret it." Her voice was quiet, but everyone heard it. Kyle backed up. He said, "This is insane. You're all insane." He pointed at the waiter. "You're lying to get a better tip." He pointed at me. "And you're embarrassing me in front of everyone because you're too immature to handle a real proposal." I felt something inside me snap. I said, "Immature? You opened a credit card in my name without telling me. You've been taking other women on dates and charging it to an account that's going to destroy my credit. And you proposed with a $40 ring after 2 years together. But I'm the immature one?" Someone at a nearby table started clapping. Then someone else joined in. Within seconds, half the restaurant was applauding. Kyle looked around like he couldn't believe what was happening. He grabbed his jacket off the back of his chair and said, "I'm done with this. You want to throw away 2 years over some stupid misunderstanding? Fine. But don't come crying to me when you realize what you gave up." He walked toward the door. The waiter called after him, "Sir, you still need to pay for dinner." Kyle didn't even turn around. He just held up his middle finger and pushed through the front entrance. The manager came over to our table. She was an older woman with gray hair in a bun and glasses on a chain around her neck. She said, "Dinner is on the house tonight. I'm so sorry you had to experience this here." My mom tried to argue, but the manager held up her hand. She said, "I've been in this business for 30 years. I've seen a lot of proposals. That was the worst one I've ever witnessed. Please, let me do this." I gave the waiter my phone number and he texted me right there. Then he said, "I'll send you everything I can find by tomorrow morning. If you need any of it for legal purposes, just let me know." We left the restaurant and got into my mom's car. She didn't start the engine right away. She just sat there gripping the steering wheel. Then she said, "I never liked him. I didn't say anything before because you seemed happy. But I never liked him." I leaned my head against the window. I said, "I know, Mom." She said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I don't know yet, but I'm not going back to him. That's for sure." We drove back to my apartment in silence. I lived alone in a one-bedroom on the east side of town. Kyle had a key, but I'd get the locks changed tomorrow. When we pulled into the parking lot, my mom said, "Do you want me to stay tonight?" I shook my head. "I'll be okay. I just need to process everything." She hugged me before I got out. She said, "Call me if you need anything. Doesn't matter what time." Inside my apartment, I sat on the couch and stared at my phone. The waiter had already sent 3 images. Each one was a receipt from Antonio's. Different dates, different amounts, all with my name on the credit card line. September 8th, dinner for 2. Filet mignon, lobster tail, 2 bottles of wine. Total, $612. September 15th, dinner for 2. Seafood platter, champagne, chocolate lava cake. Total, $490. September 23rd, lunch for 2. Appetizers, entrees, dessert, cocktails. Total, $280. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped the phone. I added up the 3 receipts, $1,582, and those were just 3 visits. The waiter said Kyle had been there 12 times in the past month. I opened my laptop and logged into my bank account. Everything looked normal. Checking account had $2,300. Savings had $8,000. Nothing unusual. But if Kyle had opened a credit card in my name, it wouldn't show up in my bank accounts. It would be separate. I went to the Capital One website and clicked on Check Your Account. I entered my name, date of birth, social security number. The page loaded. Then my stomach dropped. Account opened, July 14th. Credit limit, $15,000. Current balance, $14,218. $14,000. I felt like I was going to throw up. I scrolled down to see the transaction history. Page after page of charges. Antonio's, another Italian place called Vinny's, a steakhouse called the Maple Room, a wine bar, a jewelry store, a hotel. All the charges were from the past 3 months. The jewelry store charge was from August 3rd, $2,400. I wondered if that was for one of the other women. The hotel charge was from September 9th. One night, $360. I called my mom. She answered on the first ring. "Mom," I said. "He charged $14,000 to a card in my name." She was quiet for a second. Then she said, "We're calling the police, right now." I said, "I don't even know if that's illegal. We were dating. Maybe he thought he had permission or something." She said he did not have permission. "You didn't even know about the card. That's fraud. That's identity theft." I hung up and called the non-emergency police number. The dispatcher asked what I needed to report. I said my boyfriend opened a credit card in my name without my knowledge and charged $14,000 to it. She said, "I'll send an officer to your location. What's your address?" I gave her my address and she said someone would be there within an hour. I sat on the couch and waited. I didn't cry. I felt too numb for that. I just kept staring at the transaction history on my laptop screen. The officer showed up 40 minutes later. He was older, maybe late 50s, with a mustache and tired eyes. He introduced himself as Officer Brennan. I let him in and showed him everything: the credit card statement, the texts from the waiter, the receipts. He took notes on a little pad. He said, "This is definitely fraud. You'll need to file a report with the credit card company and also with us." "Have you confronted him about this?" I said I broke up with him tonight, in front of everyone at the restaurant. "He knows I know about the card." Officer Brennan nodded. He said, "Does he have a key to this apartment?" I said yes, "but I'm getting the locks changed tomorrow." He said, "Good. Do it first thing. And if he shows up here, don't let him in. Call us immediately." He wrote down a case number and gave me a card with his direct line. He said, "I'll file the report tonight. You should also freeze your credit in case he tries to open anything else in your name." After he left, I called the 3 credit bureaus and put a freeze on my credit. Then I called Capital One. I spent an hour on the phone with them explaining the situation. They said they'd start a fraud investigation and send me paperwork to fill out. They also said I wasn't responsible for the charges since I didn't open the account or authorize anyone to use it, but they said it could take months to resolve, and until then, the account would stay on my credit report. My credit score had already dropped from 740 to 580. I hung up and finally let myself cry. Not because I missed Kyle, but because I felt so stupid. How had I not noticed? How had I not questioned where he got money for nice dinners when he was always complaining about being broke? How had I ignored all the signs? My phone buzzed. It was a text from a number I didn't recognize. The message said, "I'm sorry about tonight. If you need anything, let me know." I think there might be more than just the restaurant charges. One of the other servers said she saw him at our sister location in Westfield with a different woman last week. I wrote back, "Who is this?" The response came fast. "It's Troy, the waiter from Antonio's. I asked around after you left. My coworker Vanessa said she's seen him multiple times, always with different women, always big spender." I wrote back, "Thank you. Can Vanessa give me details?" He sent me Vanessa's number and I saved it. Then I texted her. She replied 20 minutes later. She said she'd worked at the Westfield location for 2 years and had seen Kyle at least 8 times in the past few months. She sent me photos from her phone, pictures she'd taken of fancy cocktails and food presentations for the restaurant's social media. In the background of 3 photos, you could clearly see Kyle. In 2 of them, he was sitting with a brunette woman who was leaning across the table holding his hand. In another one, he was with a different woman, this one with curly hair, and they were sharing a dessert. I saved all the photos. Then I texted Vanessa asking if she remembered anything else. She said he always paid with a credit card and always acted like a big shot. Lots of snapping fingers at servers. Lots of sending drinks back. One time he made another server cry because he said her perfume was too strong and it ruined his meal. That sounded like Kyle. I thanked Vanessa and told her I might need her to give a statement to the police. She said no problem. I didn't sleep that night. I kept going through my phone, looking at old texts and photos, trying to find clues I'd missed. There were so many. Nights he said he had to work late. Weekends he said he was visiting his brother in Capital City. A Tuesday afternoon when he said he had a dentist appointment but came back smelling like expensive cologne. At 3 in the morning, I got up and started going through the closet. Kyle kept some clothes at my place. A few shirts, 2 pairs of jeans, shoes. I pulled everything out and dumped it in a trash bag. In the pocket of one of his jackets, I found a receipt from a flower shop, dated September 20th. Roses, $65. He'd never bought me flowers. I took a photo of the receipt and added it to the folder on my phone where I was keeping evidence. Then I kept searching. In his gym bag, I found a hotel room keycard, the Grandview Hotel. I looked it up on my phone. Rooms started at $250 a night. I threw everything into the trash bag and tied it shut. Then I dragged it to the front door. In the morning, I'd drop it at his place and be done with it. At 6 a.m., I gave up on sleep and made coffee. My phone rang. It was my mom. She said I couldn't sleep. "How are you doing?" I said, "I'm okay." I found more stuff. Hotel keycard, flower receipt, photos from another restaurant location. She was quiet for a second. Then she said, "Bring everything to my house. We're going to organize it and figure out exactly what he did. And then we're going to make sure he pays for it." I drove to my mom's house at 7. She lived in a small ranch-style place with a garden in the front yard. When I got there, she already had coffee made and her laptop open on the kitchen table. She said, "Sit down. Let's make a timeline." We spent the next 3 hours going through everything. Every receipt, every photo, every text message. We made a spreadsheet with dates, locations, amounts, and descriptions. By the time we finished, we had documented over 20 separate incidents of Kyle taking other women on dates using the credit card in my name. The total came to $18,643. My mom sat back in her chair and took off her reading glasses. She said, "This is worse than I thought." I said, "I know." She said, "You need a lawyer." I said, "I don't have money for a lawyer." She said, "I'll pay for it." "This isn't negotiable. He committed fraud. He destroyed your credit. He humiliated you. We're not letting him get away with this." I started crying again. My mom got up and hugged me. She said, "You didn't do anything wrong. He did this. Not you." At 10 o'clock, we went to a law office downtown. My mom had called ahead and made an appointment with a lawyer named Patricia Vance, who specialized in fraud cases. Patricia was in her 50s with short red hair and a firm handshake. She listened to the whole story without interrupting. Then she looked at the spreadsheet we'd made and whistled. She said, "This is one of the most blatant cases of identity theft I've seen in a while." He didn't even try to hide it. I said, "What can we do?" Patricia said, "First, we file a police report if you haven't already." "You have?" I nodded. She said, "Good." "Second, we file a complaint with the credit card company and dispute every single charge. Third, we sue him in civil court for damages. That includes the money he stole, the damage to your credit, and emotional distress." I said, "How much will this cost?" Patricia said, "I'll take it on contingency. That means I only get paid if we win. And based on what you've shown me, we're going to win." We signed a contract, and Patricia said she'd start filing paperwork immediately. She also said to document everything from this point forward. If Kyle contacts you, save it. If he shows up at your place, record it. If he threatens you, call the police. I left her office feeling like maybe I had some control back. My mom took me to lunch at a diner near her house. We ordered sandwiches and sat in a booth by the window. She said, "I'm proud of you. You could have ignored this. You could have convinced yourself it wasn't a big deal. But you didn't." I said, "I just feel so stupid for not seeing it sooner." She reached across the table and took my hand. She said, "He's a con artist. Con artists are good at what they do. That's why they're successful. You're not stupid. You're trusting. And there's nothing wrong with that." After lunch, I went home and called a locksmith. He came out that afternoon and changed all the locks. He also installed a deadbolt and a chain lock. When he finished, I felt a little safer. That night, Kyle started texting me. The first message came at 8 p.m. It said we need to talk. I ignored it. The second message came 10 minutes later. "You can't just throw away 2 years like this." I ignored that one too. At 9, he called. I didn't answer. He called again. And again. By 10 o'clock, he'd called 14 times. I blocked his number. Then he started messaging me on Instagram, on Facebook, on Snapchat. Every message was some version of the same thing. "You're overreacting. Let me explain. You're making a huge mistake." I blocked him on every platform. Then I made all my accounts private. At 11 p.m., someone knocked on my door. I looked through the peephole. It was Kyle. He was holding flowers and wearing the same suit from the proposal. I didn't open the door. He knocked again. Then he said, "I know you're in there. Your car is in the parking lot. Just let me in so we can talk." I said through the door, "Go away or I'm calling the police." He said, "Don't be dramatic. I just want to explain." I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. The dispatcher answered and I said my ex-boyfriend is at my door, refusing to leave. I already have a fraud case filed against him with the police and I don't feel safe. She said, "Stay on the line. We're sending someone now." Kyle must have heard me talking because he started yelling. "You're really calling the cops on me? After everything I've done for you? I gave you 2 years of my life." I didn't respond. I just stayed on the phone with the dispatcher. She asked me to describe what was happening. I told her he was yelling and pounding on the door. She said officers are 2 minutes away. Kyle kicked the door. I heard the wood crack a little. Then he said, "Fine. You want to be like this? Fine. But you're going to regret it. You're nothing without me. Nobody's going to want you." Then I heard footsteps and he was gone. I stayed on the line with the dispatcher until the police arrived. It was Officer Brennan again. He took a statement and looked at the door. He said the frame is damaged. "Do you want to press charges for property damage?" I said yes. He said I'll add it to the report. He also said if Kyle shows up again, call us immediately. We can arrest him for trespassing and harassment. After he left, I pushed my couch in front of the door and tried to sleep. I kept waking up every hour thinking I heard something. The next morning, Patricia called. She said I filed the civil suit. Kyle will be served with papers within the next few days. She also said the credit card company expedited the investigation and determined that the account was fraudulent. They're closing it and removing it from your credit report. It'll take a few weeks, but your credit score should go back to normal. I said, "What about the money he spent?" She said that's between him and Capital One now. They'll go after him for it. You're not liable. That was the first good news I'd had in days. I thanked her and hung up. I took the day off work. I worked as an administrative assistant at a dental supply company, and my boss was understanding when I explained I was dealing with a personal emergency. She said, "Take the rest of the week if you need it." I spent the day cleaning my apartment. I threw out everything that reminded me of Kyle. A coffee mug he'd left, a hoodie, a toothbrush, a book he'd been reading. All of it went in the trash. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Troy, the waiter. He said, "Thought you should know Kyle came into Antonio's last night with another woman. Manager kicked him out and banned him. Just wanted you to know he's not allowed back." I wrote back, "Thank you for everything. Seriously. You didn't have to help me, but you did." He wrote back, "Nobody deserves to be treated like that. Good luck with everything." That afternoon, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. A woman's voice said, "Is this Jenna?" That was my name. I said, "Yes." "Who's this?" She said, "My name is Bryn. You don't know me, but I think we need to talk. I went on a date with your boyfriend last month." My stomach dropped. I said, "Ex-boyfriend. We broke up." She said, "I know. I saw the video." I said, "What video?" She said someone posted a video of the proposal on TikTok. It went viral. That's how I found out his name was Kyle. I looked him up and found your Instagram. That's how I got your number from a mutual friend. I sat down on the couch. I said, "There's a video?" She said, "Yeah. It has like 2 million views. Everyone's on your side though. The comments are all about what a jerk he is. I opened TikTok and searched proposal rejection. The video came up immediately. Someone had filmed the whole thing. Kyle getting down on one knee, him talking about the $40 ring, me saying no, me breaking up with him, the waiter revealing the credit card, all of it. The comments were exactly what Brynn said. Thousands of people calling Kyle cheap, manipulative, a liar. Hundreds of comments saying good for her. Someone had even made a Stitch video explaining why what Kyle did was financial abuse. I felt sick. I said, "How did you find me?" Brynn said I dated Kyle for 3 weeks in August. He told me he was single. We went to Antonio's twice. He always paid with a credit card and acted like a big shot. Then one night, he just ghosted me. I texted him and he never responded. When I saw the video, I realized he was probably dating multiple women at the same time. I said, "Did he take you anywhere else?" She said we went to the Maple Room once, and we stayed at the Grandview Hotel one weekend. He said it was a surprise romantic getaway. The Grandview Hotel, the same place I'd found the key card for. I said, "Did he pay for the hotel with a credit card?" She said, "Yeah. He made a big deal about how he wanted to treat me to something special." I said that was my credit card. He opened it in my name without telling me. He's been using it to take women on dates for months. Brynn was quiet. Then she said, "Oh my God. I had no idea. I'm so sorry." I said, "It's not your fault. You didn't know." She said, "Is there anything I can do?" I said, "If you have receipts or any proof of the dates, that would help. I'm building a case against him." She said, "I'll send you everything I have. And if you need me to talk to the police or a lawyer, I will." We exchanged numbers and she sent me screenshots of texts between her and Kyle. Messages where he called her babe and sweetheart. Messages where he made plans to meet her at restaurants. One message where he said he couldn't wait to spend the night with her. The dates matched up with charges on the credit card statement. I added everything to my evidence folder. Over the next 2 days, 3 more women contacted me. All of them had seen the TikTok video. All of them had dated Kyle in the past 6 months. All of them had gone to expensive restaurants with him. One of them, a woman named Paige, said Kyle had told her he was a financial consultant who made 6 figures. She said he drove a BMW and always had cash. Except she later found out the BMW belonged to his roommate and the cash was probably from credit cards. Another woman, Iris, said Kyle had taken her to a jewelry store and bought her a bracelet. She still had it. The receipt showed he'd spent $1,200 on my credit card. The third woman, Jillian, said Kyle had ghosted her after 2 months. She said she'd really liked him and was hurt when he disappeared. When she saw the video, she realized she was just one of many. I felt terrible for all of them. They'd been lied to just like me, but at least now we all knew the truth. Patricia was thrilled when I sent her the information from the other women. She said this makes the case even stronger. He wasn't just committing fraud, he was running a whole operation. On Friday, Kyle was served with the lawsuit. I know because he called me from a different number screaming. He said, "You're really going to sue me? Over a misunderstanding?" I said, "It's not a misunderstanding. You stole my identity and committed fraud. You took at least 4 other women on dates using my money. You destroyed my credit." He said I was going to pay you back. I was building our future. I said by taking other women to hotels? By buying them jewelry? That was for our future? He didn't have an answer for that. He just said, "You're going to regret this." Then he hung up. I immediately called Officer Brennan and reported the call. He said we can add harassment to the charges. "Do you want a restraining order?" I said yes. He said I'll start the paperwork. The following Monday, I went to court for the restraining order hearing. Kyle was there with a lawyer, some guy in a cheap suit who looked barely out of law school. Patricia was with me and she had organized all the evidence into binders. Photos, receipts, text messages, statements from the other women. The judge was a woman in her 60s with gray hair and sharp eyes. She listened to both sides. Kyle's lawyer tried to argue that it was a misunderstanding between a couple, that Kyle had intended to pay me back, that I was overreacting. Patricia stood up and presented the evidence. She showed the credit card statement, the photos of Kyle with other women, the hotel receipts, the testimony from Brynn, Iris, Paige, and Jillian. The judge looked at Kyle. She said, "Did you or did you not open a credit card in this woman's name without her knowledge?" Kyle stammered. He said, "I thought we were serious. I thought she wouldn't mind." The judge said, "That's not what I asked. Did you open the account without her knowledge?" Kyle looked at his lawyer. His lawyer whispered something. Then Kyle said yes. The judge said, "Restraining order granted. You are not to contact Miss Jenna Hartley in any way. You are not to come within 500 feet of her home or workplace. If you violate this order, you will be arrested. Do you understand?" Kyle nodded. The judge said, "I need to hear you say it." Kyle said, "I understand." The judge signed the order and handed it to the bailiff. She said this hearing is adjourned. Outside the courtroom, Patricia said that went well. Now we wait for the civil trial date. I said, "When will that be?" She said, "Probably a few months. But in the meantime, he can't contact you. And the criminal investigation is ongoing. There's a good chance he'll face charges for identity theft and fraud." I thanked her and went home. For the first time in a week, I felt like I could breathe. That night, my mom called and said, "How did it go?" I said I got the restraining order. She said, "Good. He deserves worse, but it's a start." I said, "I just want this to be over." She said it will be. Just give it time. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Officer Brennan. He said the district attorney has decided to file criminal charges against Kyle. Identity theft, fraud, and forgery. He's looking at possible jail time. I said, "Really?" He said yes. The evidence is overwhelming. He'll probably try to take a plea deal, but even then he's facing consequences. I said thank you for everything. He said you did the hard part. You stood up for yourself. A lot of people wouldn't have done that. After I hung up, I sat on my couch and cried. Not sad tears. Relief tears. It was really over. The civil trial happened 4 months later. Kyle didn't show up. His lawyer tried to get the case dismissed, but the judge denied it. Patricia presented all the evidence and the judge ruled in my favor. Kyle was ordered to pay me $22,000, $18,000 for the fraudulent charges and $4,000 for damages and emotional distress. Patricia said collecting the money might be difficult since Kyle probably doesn't have it, but the judgment stands. If he ever gets money, we can garnish his wages. I said I don't even care about the money anymore. I just wanted him to be held accountable. She said, well, he has been. He's got a criminal record now. He's got a civil judgment against him. And everyone who knows him knows what he did. The criminal trial happened 2 months after that. Kyle took a plea deal. He pled guilty to identity theft and fraud. He was sentenced to 18 months in jail and 5 years probation. He also had to pay restitution to Capital One for the full amount he'd charged. I didn't go to the sentencing. I didn't want to see him. But Officer Brennan called me after and told me what happened. He said, Kyle cried in court. He said he was sorry and that he'd made a mistake. The judge told him that stealing someone's identity and ruining their credit wasn't a mistake. It was a crime. I felt nothing when I heard that. No satisfaction, no anger, just nothing. He was out of my life, and that was all that mattered. I spent the next few months rebuilding. My credit score went back up to 720. I got a promotion at work. I started seeing a therapist to work through trust issues. I went on a few dates, but nothing serious. I wasn't ready for that yet. One day, I was at the grocery store and I ran into Kyle's mom. She was in the produce section holding a bag of apples. When she saw me, she froze. Then she walked over and said, I owe you an apology. I should have said something that night at the restaurant. I should have stood up for you. I said, it's okay. It wasn't your fault. She said, he's my son and I love him, but what he did was wrong. I'm glad you didn't let him get away with it. I said, how is he? She said he's in jail. He calls me once a week. He says he's sorry. I don't know if he means it or if he's just sorry he got caught. I said, either way. I hope he learns from this. She nodded. Then she said, you deserved better. I hope you find someone who treats you right. I said, thank you. We said goodbye and I finished my shopping. On the way home, I thought about everything that had happened. The proposal, the credit card, the other women, the trial, all of it. And I realized I didn't regret any of it. Not the relationship, not the breakup, not the lawsuit. Because all of it taught me something. It taught me to pay attention, to trust my instincts, to stand up for myself. A year after the breakup, I got a message on Instagram from Bryn. She said, I just wanted to check in and see how you're doing. I hope you're well. I wrote back, I'm doing great. Thank you for reaching out back then. It really helped. She said, I'm glad. I've been thinking about everything a lot lately. I actually started a blog about financial abuse and dating red flags. A lot of people have reached out saying they've experienced similar things. I said, that's amazing. Send me the link. She did, and I read through some of her posts. She wrote about her experience with Kyle, about how he'd love-bombed her and made her feel special and then disappeared, about how she'd blamed herself until she realized it wasn't her fault. I left a comment saying thank you for sharing your story. You're helping more people than you know. 2 years after the breakup, I was doing better than I ever had. I'd been promoted again at work. I'd moved into a bigger apartment. I'd started dating someone new. His name was Owen, and he was kind and respectful, and he always insisted on splitting the bill until I told him I was comfortable with him paying sometimes. One night, we were having dinner at a little Thai place near my apartment. Owen ordered pad thai and I got drunken noodles. We were talking about our days when my phone buzzed. It was an email from Patricia. The subject line said, Kyle Brennan restitution payment. I opened it. Patricia had written, I wanted to let you know that Kyle made his first restitution payment to Capital One. He's working a job in prison and they're garnishing his wages. He still owes over $16,000, but it's a start. Just wanted to keep you updated. I showed Owen the email. He said, how do you feel about that? I said, honestly, I don't feel anything. It's just something that happened in my past. He reached across the table and took my hand. He said, I'm glad you're past it. You deserve to be happy. I said, I am happy. And I meant it. Kyle had tried to ruin my life, but he didn't succeed. I'd stood up for myself. I'd held him accountable. And I'd moved on. 3 years after the breakup, the TikTok video resurfaced. Someone had reposted it with a caption that said, this is still the most iconic breakup of all time. It got another 1 million views. People started commenting asking for an update. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. My life wasn't about Kyle anymore. It was about me and the future I was building. Owen and I got engaged a year later. He proposed at a park near the lake where we'd had our first date. It was simple and private and perfect. The ring was beautiful and he'd saved for months to buy it. When he got down on one knee, he said, I love you and I want to spend the rest of my life making you happy. Will you marry me? I said yes without hesitation. We got married 6 months later. Small ceremony. Just family and close friends. My mom cried happy tears. Owen's parents welcomed me with open arms. It was everything I'd wanted and nothing like that nightmare at Antonio's. At the reception, my mom pulled me aside. She said, I'm so proud of you. Look how far you've come. I said I couldn't have done it without you. She said, yes, you could have. You're stronger than you think. I hugged her and said, I love you, Mom. 4 years after the breakup, I got a letter in the mail. It was from Kyle. It had been forwarded from my old address. The handwriting on the envelope was messy. I almost threw it away without opening it. But curiosity got the better of me. Inside was a single page. The letter said, I know I don't have the right to contact you, but I wanted to say I'm sorry. I've had a lot of time to think about what I did, and I know it was wrong. I hurt you, and I hurt a lot of other people. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry, and I hope you're doing well. I read it twice. Then I folded it up and put it in a drawer. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. His apology didn't change anything. It didn't undo the damage. It didn't erase the past. But it did give me closure. Knowing that he understood what he'd done wrong. Knowing that he had to live with the consequences. That was enough. I told Owen about the letter that night. He said, do you want to write back? I said no. I don't need to. That part of my life is over. He kissed my forehead and said okay. 5 years after the breakup, I was sitting in my living room with Owen and our 10-month-old daughter. Her name was Iris, named after one of the women who'd helped me build the case against Kyle. We'd stayed in touch over the years, and she'd become a good friend. Iris, the person, not my daughter, had texted me earlier that day saying, I just heard Kyle got out of prison last week. Thought you should know. I wrote back, thanks for the heads up. I'm not worried though. He's not allowed to contact me and I've moved on. She wrote back, I know you have. I just wanted to make sure you knew. I appreciated it. Even after all these years, the women who'd been hurt by Kyle still looked out for each other. That night, I put my daughter to bed and sat with Owen on the couch. He said, what are you thinking about? I said just how different my life is now compared to 5 years ago. He said, better different? I said, so much better. I have you. I have Iris. I have a career I love. I have real friends. I have a life that's mine. He put his arm around me and said, I'm glad. I leaned into him and said, me too. 6 years after the breakup, I got a notification on LinkedIn. Kyle had viewed my profile. I looked at his profile out of curiosity. He was working at a car wash. His profile picture showed him looking older and tired. There was nothing about his criminal record, but anyone who Googled his name would find it. I didn't accept his connection request. I didn't message him. I just closed the app and went back to my life. 7 years after the breakup, I was at a coffee shop with Iris, my daughter, when someone tapped me on the shoulder. I turned around and it was Troy, the waiter from Antonio's. He said, Jenna, I thought that was you. I smiled. Troy, how are you? He said, I'm good. I'm actually the manager at Antonio's now. I said, that's amazing. Congratulations. He said, thanks. I still think about that night sometimes. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen at work. I laughed. I said it was pretty crazy for me too. He said, I hope everything worked out for you. I said it did. I'm married now. This is my daughter, Iris. He said she's beautiful. I'm happy for you. We chatted for a few more minutes and then said goodbye. As I walked back to my car with Iris, I thought about how that one night had changed everything. If Troy hadn't spoken up, I might never have known about the credit card. I might have said yes to Kyle's proposal. I might have married him and spent years trapped in a relationship with someone who didn't respect me. But Troy did speak up, and I did find out, and I did leave. And now I had a life I loved. 8 years after the breakup, I was cleaning out my closet when I found the folder of evidence I'd built against Kyle. Receipts, photos, text messages, all of it preserved in a binder that I'd kept just in case. I didn't need it anymore. The legal battles were over. Kyle had served his time. I'd moved on. I thought about throwing it away, but then I thought about all the women who might still be dealing with something similar. Women who needed to know they weren't alone. Women who needed to know it was possible to fight back and win. So I didn't throw it away. I kept it, just in case someone ever needed to see proof that standing up for yourself was worth it. 9 years after the breakup, my daughter asked me about her name. She was in 2nd grade and her class was doing a project about what their names meant. She said, Mom, why did you name me Iris? I sat down with her and said, I named you after a very brave woman who helped me during a difficult time in my life. She stood up for what was right even when it was scary. And I wanted you to have a name that reminds you to always be brave too. She said, what happened? I said, when you're older, I'll tell you the whole story. But for now, just know that sometimes people will try to hurt you or take advantage of you. And when that happens, you have to be strong enough to stand up for yourself. She nodded like she understood. Then she said, was Daddy there? I said no. Daddy came later, after I'd already stood up for myself. That's how I knew he was a good person, because he respected me. She said, I want to be brave like you, Mom. I hugged her and said, you already are, sweetie. 10 years after the breakup, I was at a restaurant with Owen celebrating our anniversary. We were at a nice steakhouse across town. The waiter came over to take our order and I ordered the salmon. Owen ordered the ribeye. As we waited for our food, I looked around the restaurant. Couples on dates, families celebrating, people laughing and talking and enjoying their lives. And I thought about how 10 years ago I'd been sitting in a different restaurant having the worst night of my life, how I'd been humiliated in front of strangers, how I'd discovered my boyfriend was a fraud and a liar. But I also thought about how that night had led me here, to this moment, to this life. If Kyle hadn't proposed, I never would have found out about the credit card. If I hadn't found out about the credit card, I never would have left him. If I hadn't left him, I never would have met Owen. I never would have had Iris. I never would have built the life I have now. So in a weird way, I was grateful. Not grateful for what Kyle did, but grateful that I found out who he really was before it was too late. Owen reached across the table and took my hand. He said, "What are you thinking about?" I said, "Just how lucky I am." He smiled. He said, "I'm the lucky one." I said, "No, I'm serious. 10 years ago, my life was a mess. And now look at us." He squeezed my hand. He said, "We built this together." I said, "You're right. We did." Our food arrived and we ate and talked and laughed. And I didn't think about Kyle once for the rest of the night.